What you will always get from me is never a clear-cut answer quickly, because it's just a mess. None of us live in, the US. None of us are in any of these kind of intense political situations.
V is a terrorist. And he is. Sneaky ways.
Have very extreme beliefs, want to go crazy. I can't stop them. They can do whatever they want. Another side wouldn't do that as well. So I told him, I was like, hey, please don't do that. And he was like, yeah, man, okay, my bad. But I think as well, I told Hasan as well, I was like, hey, look, the show is not political. We don't want to deal with politics. We're most likely not going to have you on again.
That's like straight up written by a communist.
The message more than others. Obviously, Hasan has like fucking nailed it.
Because that was our thinking, because we already had him on once, and it was fine. But some people were angry about it. But yeah, I mean, it was ignorant on our part to think that, if you didn't talk about politics, it wouldn't matter. But it kind of blinds.
This here, guys, is one of the most asinine videos I've ever seen in my life. And I cannot believe that anyone would think this makes Connor, the Cdawg, look better. He's like, oh, I'm gonna not really defend Hasan, but still defend Hasan, and I refuse to take a stance against terrorism or something. You're like, really? Really? Seriously, this video is so incredibly dumb, and of course, we're gonna go over it now, right, and make fun of Connor. I mean, seriously, this is so stupid. But, before that, guys, first, excuse my voice, it's pretty bad since last week. It's much better now, though, but still bad. Secondly, we have to go over, I think, a very, very, very important concept here. And that is, who's actually the most evil? Connor or Hasan, right? And I mean that sincerely. So people might be like, oh, it's so overkill. Hasan is a terrorist supporter. Connor is just a moron or something. Blah, 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 blah. People, of course, are going to defend him, right? And honestly, it's kind of funny. People basically defend Connor and also Gikuk and the Yowie, the anime man, as for saying that these guys are stupid, right? I mean, seriously, in almost every comment that I've seen defending the Three Stooges, it's basically saying that they're too stupid to know what they're doing. That's their best defense. These guys are just really stupid. No. In all seriousness, I am very tired of the whole concept of guilt by association defense, whatever you call it, right? People keep pretending that Connor is not bad or whatever. He's just guilty by association. Right? Trying to use it as a defense. But I'm gonna say he's just guilty, okay? He's not just associated with Hasan. He's guilty, right? When I went over the first appearance of Hasan on Terrorist Taste, Connor keeps agreeing with him. Connor keeps trying to help Hasan to sell his, pro-terrorism agenda, right? So does also Yowie, for that matter. So how can you claim that they're just guilty by association? That is like straight up guilty. That is having the same opinion, right? Or of course faking it. And that begs the question then. What is actually the most evil, right? Is it like Hasan being pro-terrorism and, propaganding Houthi terrorists or whatnot, right? Is it like Connor where you pretend to agree with that for the money? I mean, seriously, ponder it a bit. That was a dramatic pause on purpose. No, but seriously, right? I want people to really think about that. Like, who is actually the worst person, right? Because a very common thing on the left, this is very, very typical for a far extreme left person, is they basically have replaced religion with ideology. I mean, political ideology. It's a very, very common saying. Because, especially if you look at countries like Sweden, Norway, and so on, very, very, close to socialism. Not really, but, going in the direction, right? They believe in the state has replaced the church, right, very low, belief in any kind of deity, and instead you believe in the perfection of the government or the state or whatnot, right? And left-leaning people tend to be very much at that. The more left you go, the more you believe in, the state as the ultimate godlike being, basically, right? Which of course explains why they also want the state to have all the power, you know what I mean? But what that means in Hasan's case is that even though he's like a nepo baby, socialistic, champagne, or whatever, all this good stuff, right? We can at least assume that Hasan, to some extent, believes in his actual message, right? That he, to some extent, actually does believe in the rhetoric he's spewing out, pro-terrorism, left, communism, blah, blah, Stalinism, whatever. That he actually believes in that, right? Okay, fine. But Connor, on the hand, he either then important here, he either agrees with Hasan, which literally says he does in one video, right? So he's either on the same side, not guilty by saying that actually is guilty then, right? He has the same terrorist ideas as Hasan, right? Or he's just saying he agrees with Hasan for the money. And I keep saying that, isn't that worse? Isn't that actually worse? Isn't that being more evil? You have one person, right, that is driven by an insane ideology, and another guy that is like pretending to join the ideology to make money on it. That to me is almost even worse. I mean, it's hard to say. So I genuinely think it's an important question to think about, right? Now I'm going to go into and break down the video and why Connor's lying and why it's wrong and so on. But even going into it, I find it so despicable, right? This guy is basically selling his soul, right? For, for 10 views or whatever, yeah. And I guess it's kind of like the classic YouTuber thing, that almost every YouTuber, almost every influencer is just basically has zero shame, has zero integrity, and does everything for money, anything for any subscriber, right? But it's just like, Jesus Christ, but think about it. He's either agreeing with Hasan straight up, or he's being paid by Hasan to agree with him. And what is worse, right? What is worse? Is it worse helping terrorism because you believe in their cause? Or is it worse just getting paid by terrorism because you don't believe in their cause but you just want the money? Anyway, let's go into his asinine defense then.
Engage in politics publicly, because it's just a mess. None of us live in, the US.
There's a reason, of course, why I brought along my Captain America painting behind me, right? Because USA! No, but seriously, right? This is actually, I think, the dumbest take of Connor, okay? So in this 18 minutes of lies and deception or whatever, the dumbest thing is straight up, he says that he's not living in America, right? He and other boys are not living in the US. So how could they be against terrorism? This is such an incredible, stupid take that it is, I would say this is the dumbest thing I've heard this year, okay? And it's been a lot of dumb stuff this year so far, right? My God, I'm down like $100,000 this week in stocks. But here comes Connor and he's like, oh, I can't care about terrorism because I'm not an American, So first of all, this is racist, right? Isn't it? Isn't it very racist? He's basically saying that if you don't live in America, you can't care about terrorism, which I would see is racist against me, okay? And that sounds stupid, but I mean literally, because the guy is from Wales, right? He's from, the UK, and he's like, well, I'm not an American. I'm from the UK, so we don't care about terrorism. So it's like a weird racism against his own people, And also, of course, against people like me, right? From other countries of Europe, whatever, saying that, no, also Europeans, whatever, Italian, France, so on, we can't care about, bad stuff happening with terrorism because, again, we're not Americans. Think about it. How dumb is this? I keep calling it asinine, but this is truly insanely asinine. Because I keep saying, right, his defense, and I really mean this thing, just think about how dumb it is. His defense is that because he lives in Japan and because he's from Europe, he cannot concern himself about terrorism. How sick is that? It's like, if he obviously was born, right, when 9/11 happened, right? And I suppose he was living in Wales when 9/11 happened. So was he like not against 9/11? Was this guy just like, oh, he died a lot of people in America because terrorism, but I can't care about that because I don't live in America. I can't concern myself if they die over there. I mean, it's such a stupid take, right? My home country very recently had this school shooting, right? The biggest one so far in my home country, just last month, right? Does Connor have the same thing there then? Is Connor gonna claim that, oh, I don't care about that, they can all go and die or whatever because, I don't live in that country, you know what I mean? Like, it is such an incredible, insane take. It's so stupid. I mean, I can't even believe I have to sit there and explain it, right? Because people are literally defending him saying this thing. They're like, oh, no, but, no, this is so stupid. The guy is straight up saying that because he doesn't live in America, he doesn't concern himself with any other wars, any other politics. He's not against terrorism, which you should be, regardless of where you live, right? That doesn't matter. It's just so insane. And I want to be very, very clear here, right? The way he phrases this part here, he's basically saying that not only does he not concern himself about terrorism in America, right? But I mean in general, okay? I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but it has to be very, very clear here. He's talking about it overall, like as in the planet, as in the planet, in globally. So he's just like, I'm not an American, so I don't care if people get killed in other countries, you know what I mean? Like, it's so weird, and it really is racism, because he's basically saying that if you're not American, you can't care about other people, right? It is so crazy. It's so stupid.
And I even told Hasan, I was like, hey man, can you not?
He, in 1 minute, says, oh, I didn't know that Hasan would talk about politics. And then the next minute he's like, well, actually, I asked Hasan not to talk about politics. Right? He obviously is lying. He obviously is completely dumb. It cannot be true at the same time. It's an oxymoron. They both can't be same. You cannot claim that you don't know your guest will talk about politics and at the same time say that you asked him not to bring it up. I mean, you're obviously lying then, right? You're obviously lying. It's an oxymoron. That he asked Hasan not to bring up politics. And if you watch the actual video, Hasan starts saying basically immediately, oh, I'm sorry, I was supposed to bring up politics, right? And furthermore, as we know, of course, Connor kept bringing up politics with Hasan in the first appearance, right? So Connor is a liar, 100%. Cdawg, deceptive liar, right? Pretending that he didn't know that Hasan was going to get politics is so stupid. He sits here and pretends that he doesn't know Hasan's, terroristic positioning or whatever, right? Even though he sat in the same room with Hasan when Hasan was lying about One Piece, Vinland Saga, Gundam, you name it, right? And Hasan keeps bringing up how terrorism is awesome or whatever in that podcast, sitting next to Connor, like in the same room as Connor, right? Yet Connor now is acting like, oh, I just didn't know that Hasan was going to bring up politics.
Have very extreme beliefs, want to go crazy. I can't stop them.
This is a terrible take again. He's just like, oh, I can't stop people from being extreme. Yeah, but you don't have to platform them, right? You know what I mean? And I just want to address this point again, right? I'm not against having Hasan on your podcast, right? If you actually debate him, you know what I mean? I think it's perfectly fine bringing on a crazy extreme guest as long as you actually debunk him, right? But Connor does opposite. Connor's opposite. Connor brings on Hasan, and then he helps him, right? Connor sits there and, again, helps Hasan with his propaganda, right? And of course, I bring it up, you should iterate back to the first point. He's not only guilty by association, he's just guilty, right? He's just straight up guilty.
Talk about politics, that it would stay out of it, because that was our thinking, because we already had him on once, and it was fine. But some people were angry.
So Connor comes back to bring up again that he doesn't believe that Hasan would talk about politics or whatever. And this is so asinine. I keep saying it's asinine, right? I already mentioned it, but again, he brings it up again several times, and it's just like, bruh, I've seen the first podcast, okay? It is 2 hours long. It is 98% about politics, okay? Sure, you mentioned anime, but Hasan, is like, oh, Communism, Gundam, Marxism, Vinland Saga, One Piece is pro-terrorism, Houthi terrorism is good or whatever, cool terrorism, blah, blah. So to claim that you thought that, oh, well, he's never gonna bring up terrorism or something again in the second podcast, like, obviously, I already mentioned it earlier, but again, he keeps coming back to it, right? He keeps doing this, what's called a circle argument. He keeps trying to kind of do the same thing over and over again, right? And it just doesn't really move. He actually doesn't really provide any real arguments, right? To be honestly, because he keeps kind of like, how do I say it? This is a new point to that. He's a liar, obviously, but he's also a terrible rhetorical skills, because he basically just says that I did nothing wrong. It's everyone else's fault, right? You know what I mean? This is called self-victimization, right? Typical narcissistic trait, yeah. Typical sociopathic trait. So Connor basically is like, well, I did nothing wrong, because the first time Hasan was on, and sure, he only mentioned terrorism like 55 times, and sure, some people got angry, and but it's not my fault, So I brought him on again, and then people were angry at me again, and more angry than last time, but it's not my fault, right? So that's basically what he's doing here, I would say, more in a mental state, right? He's kind of trying to be like, well, yes, the first time we got a lot of hate, but the second time we got even more hate. So how could you blame me? I couldn't know that.
They're out of touch. I'm like, I guess, I think that's safe to say, if being in touch is living on Twitter and engaging.
I mean, I already mentioned it earlier. What can you say here? This guy is like, oh, but I can't be on Twitter all the time, so why would I care about politics? Connor, a lot of people actually, I'll say it, care about politics without ever being on Twitter. You know what I mean? I cared about politics before Twitter existed, right? It is an incredible, pathetic excuse to pretend like, oh, I can't know that terrorism bad because I don't spend time on Twitter. I mean, if anything, Twitter basically spends a lot of time trying to defend it, right? You know, yeah, it's so stupid too. Oh, it's so stupid. Because, I mean, overall, right, Twitter opinions are kind of crazy, right? You know, in both directions. So, what is he trying to claim here? That if I'm not on Twitter, I can't be up to date on politics. Have you ever read a newspaper, Connor? Have you ever, you know, watched normal TV? He does says that he only watched BBC for that matter, which is really stupid. But whatever, right? It's just like, come on, man. This is the worst excuse of all time. Saying that, oh, I can't concern myself about like straight up terrorism or wars or whatever because I'm not on Twitter. Like, it's just so stupid.
Just because we have someone on doesn't mean we agree with every single thing that they would.
So of course I agree with this sentiment. The problem, of course, with Connor, as I read over earlier, is that when he agrees. He agrees with everything Hasan says in the first podcast. And the first appearance of Terrorist Taste, Connor straight up agrees with basically every point Hasan makes. So how can you say that you don't agree with Hasan if you actually agree with him? You know what I mean? And obviously you can say, nah, pretend you lied or something. But then it comes back, right, to my main point that aren't you then just really, really effing evil because you bring in a terrorist supporter. You agree with everything they say because they're paying you ukane, right? Money, money, money. And then you pretend that, oh, it's just whatever. It doesn't matter. You're either an incredible money-grabbing person, right? Who has absolutely zero shame and integrity and so forth. Or you're also a terrorist supporter. It's either one of those things.
Consider all sides. And I'm not like a centrist or anything.
No, it seems more like you support terrorism, right? No, I mean, seriously. It's a really weird stance he takes, actually, because he's either just incredibly spineless, right, and refuses to say what he actually believes in, yet he claims that he's just like, I'm both on the left and the right, but I'm not a centrist. But what are you then? You can't say that I'm not left and I'm not right, and you know, I'm not in the middle either. Okay, so he's like, I'm nowhere, you know, I'm just out in the sky. Something. It just doesn't make any sense, man. This is the most pathetic way to say that you don't have any stance whatsoever. Or you're lying, okay? Maybe I'm cynical, but I think that there's only really one way that I would analyze this behavior, right? And I mean it very, very sincerely, that I think this to me looks like he's agreeing with Hasan, right? This to me is Connor, that he actually does believe in a lot of this, you know, champagne socialism, right? Very, very strange belief systems, right? Because they cannot relate to actual just normal human beings whatsoever. And this guy is maybe that, because he basically is just like, no, I have no position. I'm just everywhere, nowhere at the same time. Oh, I'm God, you know. You're like, what? So, I mean it seriously, like, what do these guys believe in? So he's either like that, he cannot relate whatsoever to the normal person, right? Or he actually does agree with Hasan. I think it's actually very likely that he straight up actually agrees with his pro-terrorism, extreme, far left-wing ideology, right? And of course he knows, he's smart enough to understand that by actually admitting that he agrees with Hasan, he's gonna, like, you know, become ostracized, so he has to pretend that he doesn't, right? That's probably it. I mean, I think that's the most likely scenario. What do you guys think? Well, I think it's very likely that he actually straight up believes, you know, he's been drinking the Kool-Aid way too much, you know. Wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. I think it's a very plausible theory. Or he's just pure evil. Who knows, you know? Who knows?
Fucking statement. Who gives a fuck?
Liar, 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 right? I have no understanding what anyone likes this person for. He is so incredibly disingenuous. This is obviously the most dumbest lie ever again, right? This whole video just incredibly so much lies and deception. But the deception on the most shallow, you know, IQ 1 level. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Of course this is a lie. He knows very well that if he actually makes a statement, like a normal person would make a statement saying that terrorism bad, you know what I mean? A normal person would actually make that statement. He claims that no one would be happy if he made that kind of statement. Reality is that 99% of humanity would be happy, right, if Connor take a statement against these crazy terrorists, right? But he won't even do that. I mean, what can you say, right? What can you say to that? He's obviously lying. First of all, I keep saying he's lying. He's lying. He knows very well that he could make a lot of people happy by, saying that, right? But he's so obsessed, I suppose, right? By being Hasan's slave, right? I think it's really funny, honestly, how Hasan loves talk about, master slave, Mars system, wage slave, and so on, right? But obviously Connor is basically Hasan's slave, right? He's basically his pet, right? Yeah. He's so obsessed with just being that. So he cannot just say the most obvious statement of terrorism bad, Houthi bad, or whatever, whatever. He can't, Hezbollah bad. So he can't even say that. He's just like, no, I want to make a statement, no. But again, everyone else except the most far extreme left-leaning person would agree with you, Connor. That's a statement you can say, right? But because he's so obsessed by having that little, less than 1% of people liking him, he bets on that, right? How crazy is that? Again, guys, I'm sorry about my voice. It is much better at least this week than last week, but it is what it is. Hopefully, it's fine. Hopefully tomorrow, it does feel more fine today. I know it sounds weird, but it's less painful at least than it was earlier in the week. So I hope you guys still are with me in the video, guys. If you like the video, please subscribe, press the like button, and have a great day.